Welcome to MELfeed.video. We are commencing a live web stream service via youtube.com from Echuca, Australia. We currently conduct these streams on Monday evenings, with other times to be added as more opportunities arise. Please visit our website MELfeed.video for further information. This web video project presents old and new community TV programs. Please enjoy your stay with MELfeed.video.
Hello and welcome to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Helen Warren, Coordinator of Heart to Heart Soup Kitchen in East Brunswick. Welcome to the program, Helen.
Thank you, Mirella.
Can you tell us, how did Heart to Heart Soup Kitchen start?
It was started by a group of 4 parishioners from Our Lady Help of Christians in East Brunswick. They were attending a Catholic Mass in the city one Sunday evening. And after they came out, they were approached by a homeless person asking them for help. So they took him for a meal, and they were so impressed with the way they felt and the way this happened that they went away and decided that they really wanted to do something to help people who were homeless in some way. So they spoke to their parish priest, Father Victor Ferrugia, and he agreed to support them and offered them the kitchen at the hall at the church, where the kitchen started out 18 years ago.
Wow.
And at that time they were serving soup and sandwiches twice a week to people in boarding houses and units.
Right. And they were Catholic women that started it.
Yes.
Does that mean they only had volunteers that helped them that were Catholic, or was it open to everybody?
No, all denominations were assisting people from all walks of life, and also the people we assist are of any religion or no religion.
That's right.
So they're happy to assist anyone in need.
Beautiful. And who are the group of Heart to Hearts?
So just a group of volunteers who have come over the years. We've had a vast number of volunteers who've come along to give of their time. We have volunteers who come in for deliveries after their week's work, and there might be doctors, lawyers, chiropodist, chiropractors, IT people and accountants, all manner of people who give us a couple of hours on a Friday night. That's for the delivery team. And during the day we have people coming on Thursdays and Fridays to cook the food.
Wow. And how did the name come about, Heart to Hearts?
It was actually formed on the feast of the Heart to Heart Soup Kitchen, on the Feast of the Sacred Heart.
Oh,
so,
beautiful.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful name, Heart to Hearts, like
yes.
You're helping with your heart and they're receiving with their heart.
Yes.
It's just so lovely. And why do people volunteer to be a part of Heart to Hearts? What is their attraction to it?
Well, they often say that they want to give of their time because to people who are less fortunate than themselves, and to actually help people in need, to go out and do that. And it can just be a couple of hours a month which they can give the time if that's all they have. So it's just doing that.
And what do volunteers gain from working with Heart to Hearts?
I think it's helping people in need and going out there to show people who are in need that there are people who care for them.
And it's true, because you're happier when you're helping other people, and they're happy because they're receiving. So it actually just brings a lot more happiness to the world, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, certainly.
And what do volunteers need? What qualities do volunteers need to be a volunteer for Heart to Hearts?
Well, firstly, to have the time to be away from their families or whatever, just to come and give this time to help, to be reliable, and also to be caring people who are happy to go out and brighten the lives of the people they visit, who are most grateful.
And also this year, Pope Francis has said is the year of mercy. Would you like to talk a little bit about what he's said, which may encourage some people to volunteer as well?
Yes, with his suggestions for this year of mercy to help all people in need. The first thing was to feed the poor, to look after the poor, nurture them and feed them. So that was one of his priorities in this, declaring this the year of mercy.
And how did you yourself get involved in Heart to Hearts?
I was a volunteer with St Vincent de Paul over in East Brunswick for about 16 years, and I was, during that time, they were requesting people to go out on deliveries, so I started going out every Friday night to deliver the food, and then as more needs came up, I just sort of stepped in until ultimately the coordinator resigned, and so I took over as coordinator, and that's 12 years ago.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yes.
So you've been there for 12 years
yes,
now?
I was going to be there for 4 weeks, but it's still gone on.
Wow! Oh, that's
yes.
amazing. And
yes.
you've got a bit of a nursing background as well, haven't you?
I'm a trained nurse. Yes.
Wow, gee.
Yes.
And are you enjoying working with it? How does it fulfil you to be part of Heart to Hearts?
I think it's good to go home at the end of the day. It's been a long day doing, coordinating all the cooking, etc., and then the delivery team. So it's a long day, but going home, it's very satisfying to know that we've achieved that we've gone out to 100 people. We're doing 100 at the moment to help them to take, and they're grateful.
So you you feed 100 people every week?
Friday.
Every
yes.
Friday. Gee, that's amazing.
Yes.
And what was it that one of your nursing coordinators said to you when you started nursing that was quite
Never walk
influential?
into a room without seeing something that needs doing.
That's
so
beautiful.
it was a legacy I was handed then. So I
Yeah.
guess there's so much out there that needs to be done in all walks of life. So it's just nice to pick up and go with that.
Right. And what kind of feedback do you get from the volunteers that you're helping? Do you ever get any feedback from them? But not the volunteers, the people that you're actually helping. Yeah.
Yes, yes, we do. They're very grateful. I have some lovely cards here that...
Okay, would you like to read one of the cards?
Yes,
Maybe
okay.
we can read a few as the program goes.
Yes, yes. This is from one of our girls we've assisted for a long time. She's made the card, and this was actually at Christmas. And I thank each and every one of you for preparing and delivering our meals. I always look forward to a Friday evening. It's always a joy to see all of you. Once again, thank you. And she has made that card herself.
That's beautiful.
Yes, yes.
It's good to get the feedback,
Yes.
and it makes them happy to receive as well.
Yes.
And the
does.
thanks as well. It's
Yes.
nice. That's
Yes,
good.
very good. Yes.
Beautiful. And would you like to read one more?
Yes,
Chance,
okay.
one more before we go to break.
Okay, yes. This one is all the meals you kind folks prepare. Many thanks. After all these years, I really look forward to seeing you every Friday night. The food is always good, the best because it's cooked with love and care. That is what matters most. Your greetings and smiles that makes every meal perfect. We are all so blessed, and we thank everyone who comes to help. So it's
Beautiful.
Nice. Yes.
And you feed a lot of boarding houses too, don't you?
Yes, currently we go to 6 boarding houses. There might be 12 residents in the boarding house, so they all receive meal and fruit and milk and food, whatever we have received during the week to give out.
Beautiful. We'll have to continue in a moment. We're about to go to a break.
Okay.
You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
The tax office can take money directly out of people's accounts, but you're not allowed to know. The elderly are being abused and neglected in nursing homes, but you're not allowed to know. The government can raid journalists for reporting the truth if it says you're not allowed to know. It couldn't happen in Australia. It's happening now. When the government hides the truth from you, what are they covering up? Authorised by Australia's Right to Know, Sydney.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones, the hey, I look good with this ones, the he's never grown that in a week ones, the black, brown, red and grey ones, the oh whoa, that one, the itchy ones, the never forgotten ones, the ones grown by Dad, the ones grown for Dad, the started late ones, the absolutely filthy ones, the drawn on ones, the finger ones, the badge ones, the I nearly didn't do it this year ones, and the Yeah, why not ones? They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations and save lives. Because whatever you grow, will save a bro. Sign up now at movember.com.
Northern Access Television will turn 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Helen Warren, who is coordinator of Heart to Heart's Soup Kitchen in East Brunswick. Welcome back to the program, Helen.
Thank you, Mirella.
And before the break, we're talking about the food that you delivered to these people. Where do you get all the food from?
We pick up food from the Food Bank Victoria, which we pay a handling fee for that, but they supply us with all manner of food stuff, fruit and bread and what have you. And we also receive food from Second Bite, which has been operating for 10 years. It was founded by Simone and Ian Carson. They were so concerned about the amount of food which was being thrown out. And so they have a vast group of volunteers, and they're in every state in Victoria, in Australia.
Wow.
Sorry, yes. So they're picking up the food. They have volunteers picking up the food from markets. They receive food from Coles. We even have food from the MasterChef pantry, the MasterChef kitchen, and from their show. Yeah. So we have the quality of our food has improved tremendously.
Wow,
we are called a soup kitchen, but we no longer serve soup except for the lunch on a Thursday because we have such good food.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? And
yes.
It's so beautiful that all these people in these positions are willing to help, you know?
Yes.
It's lovely to see everyone pulling together to help others, you know, less fortunate.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
And what do the volunteers need to do as part of their job, I guess, as a volunteer?
Yes. They come in to prepare the food for the lunch on a Thursday, and then to prepare what we're going to send out on the Friday. They come in about 11 o'clock, and this seems to suit volunteers for mothers who have children at school, because they can be home to pick up the children after school. They come in, they've got the children ready for school and off to school, and then they can come in and just help with that. And it's a very happy atmosphere. Yeah. They enjoy it. I have two girls who come from Eltham to over there, and they call themselves the potato princesses because they'd never peeled potatoes for 100 people ever in their lives, and so it really, yes. So they come in about every 6 weeks, and we really appreciate all of our volunteers tremendously. So they come and prepare those meals, and it's put into containers and takeaway containers, and taken out that night by a delivery team. Yeah. And these delivery team people arrive at 6, and they're briefed about the runs. We have runs that are standard runs that go 3 runs to go out to these people, and so they're briefed about that, and they depart generally about 6:30, and they're basically back about 8 o'clock after they've been to deliver the food. Okay. There's always some people who like to have a talk to them, and so it's really a good visit for them.
That's good. And so so most of the people, a lot of the people come, they volunteer, they actually make the food. So it's like home cooked meals all together, you do that.
Yes.
And then you have another group of volunteers who actually take all the food out to all the places.
Yes.
Wow. And what places do you take the food to?
Currently we're going to 6 boarding houses, and they're in Carlton, Moonee Ponds, Essendon, Coburg. So we have been attending these boarding houses from day one, and we did have others, but some of them have no longer exist. So we go there, and then we go to people in units, in maybe high-rise buildings that delegate. We have spoken to these people and assessed that they are in need of the food, so it's delivered to them. So it's a regular run for each of the teams.
Okay. And you've been doing it for how many years now?
12.
12 years. And so you would have Are there people that have had it for the whole 12 years that you've been working there?
Yes.
Wow, so you would have developed some kind of rapport with them by now.
Oh, yes, yes.
Gee.
Yes, it's very good.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Gee. And you find it fulfilling, and all the other volunteers, they find it fulfilling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Volunteers do come back, and they're always very interested. Quite often they'll phone me when it's their off week or something to inquire whether someone's home from hospital or going to hospital or what's happening, you know, so they follow them and have an interest, so it's good.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And sometimes you might turn up to these places, and you told me off camera that they say, here the happy people are coming, or something like that.
Yes.
That's nice.
They're waiting for us, yes.
So they call you the happy people. So you come in with joy and bringing the food, and then they're happy to receive it.
Yes.
Gee, that's a lovely thing you're doing. When do you require volunteers? When would you need them by?
Well, we're always looking for a delivery team for people who could come in about 6 o'clock on a Friday night and just give us a couple of hours to go out and deliver.
Okay. Do they need to have a licence? Will they be driving the
Well,
van?
they can be a passenger. We have 3 drivers and 3 volunteers with them.
Right.
Sometimes if we have extra, we have a couple of other people going out, but knowing how precious time is for everyone, 6 people is adequate.
Yeah. Okay, so you need people to volunteer to drive or volunteer to deliver the food?
Yes, to help
and
deliver.
Also to help cook the food as well? You want
to help
that as
cook.
well?
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. And it's all cooked at Brunswick in the kitchen there?
Yes.
And set out. Oh, that's lovely. And what days do you need these people?
Thursday, lunch, and Friday to prepare. And that's at 11 o'clock.
Tell us about the day-to-day runnings of Heart to Heart's Soup Kitchen.
We really operate on Thursdays and Fridays. That's the main day. Now, on Thursday, Don, my assistant coordinator, and a helper are going to pick up the food from food bank and Second Bite, etc., and they'll bring it back to the kitchen and store it as necessary. And then we have the volunteers coming in on Thursdays and Fridays. Now, people often have excess food to donate, and so they go online to soup kitchens, look up soup kitchens, and names like ours come up, and they'll phone and say we have excess pasta or bread or something which is not cooked, which is regular food, and so we then go during the week to pick that up to suit them. It's always basically, if it's bread, it's been cooked and they need us to go there at a particular time, so we do that. And then apart from that, then it's the operation on Thursday for the lunch and Friday for the preparation and delivery. So they're the 2 days mainly that we're working.
Right. And you get fresh bread from the bakery as well at the end of the day, don't you, to deliver to them?
Yes.
Well done. It's so good. Well, we're going to go to a break now. You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
Take it from me, one punch can be lethal. Thrown in anger like this, without warning, without any gloves, it can be deadly. One punch can end his life and ruin yours. It takes grunt to throw it, it takes guts to walk away.
Hello. I'd like you to put your hand up to the screen and place it on mine. Now, if you drive when you've been taking drugs and you kill someone, this will be as close as you get to your family for a very long time.
Behind every great athlete, there is a great support network. Australian Athletes with a Disability and Wheelchair Sports Australia help athletes realise their full potential.
Gonna go from 3, yes!
No matter their ability, we're there to support them. Sporting opportunities for all abilities. For more information, visit sports.org.au. Transports of Distant Delight is a mixed selection of transportation pictures from here and there and almost everywhere, but not quite. Some quirky, some mundane, some from the past, perhaps reflecting a transit system that has vanished into history, and some from thriving transport entities that continue to endure despite the constant pressures from the all-pervasive motor car. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Ridge. If you've just joined us, we're here with Helen Warren, the coordinator of Heart to Heart Soup Kitchen in East Brunswick. Welcome back to the program, Helen.
Thanks, Mirella.
Now, can you tell us, how would people volunteer? How do they go about volunteering if they feel this need to be a volunteer in this ministry of volunteers?
We are on Facebook, so people can access us there, and that is Heart to Heart's Soup Kitchen. So they can go onto there, and that has all our details. So that would be the best way to contact us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, to Google soup kitchens, and we will come up on that as well.
Okay, beautiful. And what situation are the people in that you're delivering the food to?
Mainly these people are on pensions, so we have disability pensions, age pensions, New Start, etc. And people in boarding houses, their board is already taken out of their pension, so they have a limited income. So this is one way that we can help them, by giving them a hot home-cooked meal.
Yeah. And tell us about the funding. How do you manage with the funding, and do you need more funding? And if people want to donate money, where do they donate it to?
We have received funding for the last 2 years from the Franciscan Friars, because their mission in life is to help the poor, feed them, and they're happy with the way that we're going out to help. So they have very kindly supported us, and we also receive donations from other people, as from private donors.
Right, that's good.
Yes.
And how would someone donate money? They would just contact you through the Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay. And also, how many volunteers actually deliver the food and cook the food, and how many volunteers are needed in these roles now?
Well, currently on a Thursday we have a list of 8, so we only need probably about 4 people, 3 or 4, to help in that situation. On a Friday to cook the food we have a list of 10 people who alternate and come in. Some of us are there every week. And then with the volunteers we currently have 20 on our register, so it would be really helpful if we had another 20 to lighten the load for the ones who've been with us for quite some time.
Right. And since everybody are volunteers that help you, what if someone just doesn't turn up one day, and you're missing a staff member, but they're actually vital for the link in the chain? Well, what do you do? We
do have people to call on, or Don, my assistant, or myself. We go out to do the run as well. Okay. So it's always covered. But we like to get plenty of notice, and then we can get someone else to step in. And
you also travel in twos, don't you, when you deliver the food? So everyone's always with someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. And also it's all hygienic, and you follow a certain rule as well, don't you, with that sort of thing?
Yes, we do. We have our health and safety program, and a number of us have certificates so that we are authorised to cook in a commercial kitchen as it is.
And you yourself have a nursing background as well, don't you? So
yes.
You've learnt a lot about all that sort of thing through that, I guess.
Yes, I have.
And who does the negotiation for all the food to be done, to be delivered?
Well, Don, my assistant, he phones the orders through, and then at Second Bite they allocate a certain amount of food to us each time, and we put requests into Food Bank.
Right. And so from here, what would you say looks like the future for this soup kitchen?
Well, the need is always there, and the need is growing in these days, so we would hope that it will continue, and with more help from volunteers we can keep this going. It's been going now for 18 years, so there's no reason to see it stopping. Our parish priest is very happy to have this happening over there to help.
And is the same priest helping, or is it a different priest helping now?
Father Michael Casey is our parish priest now.
Yeah.
So he's very supportive too.
And the volunteers you have had over the years, how did they each find out about it?
A lot through word of mouth. People at university, etc., would mention it to others that they were going. Mainly word of mouth. I'm doing the soup kitchen, and so someone will say, "Oh, I'd like to help," or "I'd like to come along and see what you do."
And at some point, you had senior school students as well helping out. Like
Yes.
was it like a classroom experiment or
Yes.
some sort of project, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
They've been asked, I think it's in the curriculum for this year, that in some classes that they need to do a project on being out in the community and helping. So we have had several students come and help to go out on deliveries, and also to see the lunches, to see what happens with the people and meet the people that we're helping.
And I guess you'd build quite a nice bond with all the volunteers that do help.
Yes.
How many have been there from the year dot, like the beginning?
So many, hundreds,
that's
I would say.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Gee. So they're very dedicated, aren't
Yes. Well, this is going back. People leave and go interstate, or they're having a family, or situations change and their hours change.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have gone through the kitchen.
And you've got some, quite good people. They're already working full time as a doctor, lawyer, or whatever their fields are.
Yes.
And then after those jobs, they come and help with the soup kitchen as well.
Yes.
It's very dedicated.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Yes. And can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you in this field, as well as like nursing and this field of giving and helping others? What inspired you to sort of go down that avenue?
It was just our family and the way we were brought up to help people, and like so many others, and just to see that there are needs out there and step out and help, really.
Because you also,
nursing, I think that's where it stems from, that you're there to help people.
Yeah. And you also help a lot as well in the church, at your local church too,
I do volunteer, yes, there.
So that's helpful, helping the priests and organising things at the church and cleaning up.
Yes.
I guess it's a responsibility for all of us, if we are in church, to help out where we can.
Yes, it's so good to see people just step out from what they're doing and see a need. Yes,
yeah, I remember we had this chat off camera, and we were talking about the cleaning in the church, helping with the cleaning. I was in Mass yesterday at a different church, and this girl came up to the lady that I was talking to and said, "Look, have you got a vacuum cleaner?" And she said, "What for?" She goes, "Look, I saw some dirt outside there near the confessional. I want to clean it up." I thought, wow, that's good. She just sort of took it upon herself to ask for a vacuum cleaner. She was just a parishioner at the church to clean it up. She said, "I want to clean it up so it just doesn't look messy, to have the church nice and respectful."
Yes, just general housekeeping as we do at home.
Yeah.
It's really good to see that. Yes, excellent.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the program.
My
Is there any
pleasure.
last words you want to leave our viewers with?
Oh, it's just been a pleasure to meet with you and to be able to talk about our Heart to Hearts kitchen.
Beautiful.
Thanks
so much. Thank you, Helen. You've been watching NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich, and our guest was Helen Warren. I hope you enjoyed the program, and don't forget, if you can help out at Heart to Hearts Soup Kitchen in East Brunswick, they'll be more than willing to receive a call from you. See you soon.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Hello and welcome to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Daniel Attard, who is a Senior Policy Advisor for the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. Welcome to the program, Daniel.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, can you tell me exactly what your job requires of you? What is involved?
Okay, so what a policy advisor effectively does is work in a given area in the Department of Health and Human Services. It covers a broad range of things, obviously health, mental health, disability, ageing, housing, sport and recreation. It's by far the biggest department in the Victorian government, and specifically I'm in the housing division, and even on a level down from that, the social housing reform branch. And what we do in a nutshell is look at the social housing system and industry in Victoria, and basically look at how well is it working, what parts of it need review. Do we look at particular policies or procedures that can be improved with the changing dynamics in housing, whether it's housing unaffordability, risk of homelessness, now family violence is a growing issue. We look at the changing dynamics of the clientele that are in need of social housing or who are currently in the system as things stand, and we see whether or not the system is working as well as it can.
Okay, so it's kind of your area where, say, for people, example, if they're looking for a house, they've got not much money at all, they would apply to get a government grant or a house from the government, is that right?
Absolutely. So social housing encompasses typically three main portions. The first one is public housing, which more commonly known in Victoria as the Housing Commission, though we haven't been known for that for several decades. So where public housing is owned and managed by the Victorian government. Then we also have community housing, which is managed and sometimes owned by non-government organisations. And then we have crisis housing, which is more short-term accommodation before we can find a long-term solution. Typical example of that is for people that are at risk of homelessness or who, for safety reasons, for example, escaping family violence, need short-term accommodation before a long-term solution can be found.
All right. And what does your own job involve? What sort of particular area are you working in right now? Okay,
so I look at basically how we allocate and who is eligible for housing as things stand at the moment. So we look at our policies, so our allocation policies, our eligibility policies, how effectively housing is managed in Victoria. Okay. And so the more, if we can stop, for want of a better term, wastage or inefficiencies in the system, you're never going to get rid of them completely. But if we make sure that the system runs as well as it can be expected to be, we can help more vulnerable people in Victoria
who really need it.
It. So, and that's part of the role. Another role is budgetary work. So we look at obviously, we've all got to work within the fiscal parameters of governments, whether it's local government, state governments or federal. And a lot of time these lines are blurred. So a lot of programs, some of them are delivered through local government that are funded through the state government. Sometimes the state government will deliver things through national partnerships between the state governments and the federal government. So it's looking at what money do we have available, what resources do we have available, and how can we help as many people as possible, particularly the vulnerable ones that are about to fall into the homelessness system. And when they fall in there, it's imperative to get them out of the homelessness system as quick as possible, because the longer they're in there, the harder it is to get them out, because they become entrenched, and then that's affects other aspects of their life.
So how do you mean it's harder to get them out of the homeless system once they get into it?
So when someone falls into homelessness and goes into the homelessness system, so where they go into a room in house, a homeless shelter, even things such as public housing, they're at risk of becoming entrenched in the homelessness system. And what that means is typically there's other what we call secondary and tertiary effects of being entrenched in such a system as homelessness. Often this is addiction to alcohol and other drugs, mental health issues, but they can also interchange with each other. It's what we call a causal direction. So homelessness can cause alcohol and other drug dependencies, but alcohol and other drug dependencies can cause homelessness. So one or the other aren't strictly just a cause and effect. They can both be causes and effects. And like most things in the human services world, there's not a clear black and white. There's a large grey area that we operate in. And the longer that someone, back to your question, the longer that someone is in the homelessness area, in the homelessness system, those effects, those negative effects, what we call a social determinant, has a greater effect on their life. And that also has in itself more ongoing effects. So where alcohol and other drug dependencies from homelessness affect their relationships with their children, and that relationship with the children can affect a child's engagement in their local school, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary. It can affect if, say, a couple split up, and so they're now living in two separate households and one falls into homelessness. They don't have the financial capacity to assist the other person. So typically, if a father separates from the mother and children, falls into homelessness, the mother may fall into housing stress because she doesn't have the money to maintain what was a previously intact household, and then they can fall into housing stress and possibly homelessness. And that brings about the effects that we were talking about before, where the children, if they have to, say, move because they can't afford to maintain a household in that locality, they might have to move. That brings a whole host of problems for the children, whether it's disengagement in education, whether the children and even the parents lose their social network. What we referred to before about mental health, that can, the children losing their social networks can bring about depression, and that's also for the adults as well. They can become socially isolated, they can become disengaged from the employment networks, become unemployed, and again, a lot of these negative social outcomes can become entrenched. So it's not just homelessness, it is unemployment, it's depression, other mental health issues, alcohol and other drug abuse. All these things have a negative effect, but they can become entrenched.
Okay, we'll have to continue with that and how we can find a solution. You're watching NAT Chat. We'll be back after this break.
We always liked to play chess together ever since we were little. He was always a better player than me. When I was diagnosed with Pompei's disease in 2002, I was told that my life expectancy was going to be poor, and my condition deteriorated rapidly before I was able to start treatment. My brother and I both suffered from the disease. But now I consider myself the fortunate one. My brother spent the last 2 years of his life in hospital. He didn't have access to this wonderful treatment that should be available to everybody. The world just keeps getting smaller as you progressively lose the ability to walk. So your world shrinks, and then gradually you realise, I haven't been to the supermarket in 6 months. I'm 59 now, and every year I can see my daughter grow up is a blessing. I believe my treatment's made this possible.
To learn more and help those living with Pompei's disease, register at australianpompeii.com.
If you were living on the streets, wouldn't you want more than just your best friend to keep you safe, warm and dry? Donate to Backpack Bed for Homeless and give warm, waterproof protection and dignity tonight. Call 1300 OzHelp.
It's barbie season, so it's time for a barbecue safety check. Clean away any grease build-up. Swap systems assure that the bottle inspection is in date. The bottle should be upright and not hanging by the hose. And make sure your regulator and hose is undamaged, unblocked and unkinked. Check connections using soapy water. When done, turn off clockwise at the bottle first. A quick barbie and gas safety check always means a safe and enjoyable summer.
fashion.
Tick, 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 fun.
Tick, 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 food.
Tick, 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 festivals.
All make up 15 fabulous minutes.
In a half-hour special.
Presented to you by Jacqueline and Steve.
Every week. Time's up.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Daniel Attard, who is a Senior Policy Advisor for the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. Welcome back to the program, Daniel.
Thank you.
Now, before we were talking about this kind of downward spiral with in families, where if the family breaks up and then they go into homelessness, and then it comes drugs, alcohol. What is in your area, and what is your expertise that they're actually doing to try and prevent this? Is there anything that you've come across?
Okay, so what we're currently looking at is gross housing income to housing cost ratio. What that means is basically how much of your gross household income before tax is spent on housing. Typically, housing affordability, we always hear about how housing's become unaffordable in Australia, and it has gone up significantly, especially in comparison to wages over the last 20 odd years. But when we talk about housing affordability, it's generally gauged with what we call a 30-40 rule. That is that the bottom 40% of households in Australia don't spend more than 30% of their gross household income on housing related costs, so paying rent or paying a mortgage. The reason why we say only the bottom 40%, and when I say the bottom 40%, imagine all households in Australia over a spectrum of the absolute poorest to the absolute richest. The bottom 40%, if they spend more than 30% of their household income, their gross household income, on housing costs, they're technically in unaffordable housing and in housing stress. And housing stress is anything above 30%. Obviously, the higher it goes above 30% of their gross household income, the worse the stress is, and then the greater risk of them defaulting on their mortgage, defaulting on or not paying their rent, and then again becoming homeless. What we spoke about before, becoming at risk of becoming entrenched in the homelessness system. So what I specifically look at is how what we call family fragmentation, how that affects housing stress and risk of homelessness. So typically you would have a family, a mother and father, and 1, 2, 3, however many children, and they're staying in the one house, the one property, and they're servicing that property, as in paying the mortgage or paying the rent, collectively together as a single family unit. When that house breaks up, and that doesn't necessarily have to be through relationship breakdown or divorce, households can be technically together in, for want of a better term, a romantic sense, but they have to live separately. For example, that the one of the parents, typically the father, might be a fly-in, fly-out worker in the mining sector, or that they can't actually afford to service a household on their own, or they can't find a house of appropriate size to house all the children. So one parent may actually live with one of their own parents, their children's grandparents, or live in another location. And so while they're technically romantically together, they're two separate households. You can also have the flip side, where you have two separate households living in the one house, where the mother and father, or the two parents in that household, have romantically become detached. There's been a relationship breakdown, but neither of them can afford to service a rent or a mortgage repayment on their own. So they're staying together purely for financial reasons. But that also brings about other social and psychological and emotional fallout or issues to deal with, because technically they don't want to live together, but they're living together purely as a means of financial survival. So when a household fragments into more than one physical living locality, that's where housing unaffordability increases substantially, and sometimes it can actually double or go well above doubling and even tripling. So what I mean by that is you might have a household that's spending, for example, 25% of their gross household income on paying a mortgage, paying rent. When they separate, in layman's terms, what's happening now is they are now paying 2 separate mortgages, 2 separate rents, 2 sets of electricity, gas, water bills. So while each household now has significantly less income each, they're servicing a comparable amount of fees, services, charges, including mortgage and rent and other utility bills, while they've got greatly reduced income. And that's what causes the housing stress and puts them at risk of homelessness. And then the follow-on effect of that is the effects that we spoke about.
What would you say the differences and challenges now are facing politics? What would you say they are?
So strictly from a politics in Australia is now facing a whole raft of serious issues that they do have to contend with at all levels of government, local, state and federal. Specifically for housing, all levels of government are involved. So local governments do a lot of the planning and give you permission to do things at a very basic local level. State government have certain policies that can, for example, stamp duty and land tax that can affect the cost of property, as well as broad master planning, which can add to the cost of property. And the federal government have the main levers, so it's negative gearing, it's capital tax incentives. What aided so much of the property boom, or what an effect that aided so much of the property boom, was the federal government deregulated the finance industry, but they didn't deregulate the planning industry. And they're two sides of the same coin. So if you make it easier to get funds, but you don't make it easier to build houses or to get planning permission to build houses, it makes it easier to finance a house, but not easier to build it. And that's what's, so much extra capital, extra money came into the housing system, but their housing system in the old planning scheme couldn't cope with that influx. So the demand side for housing went up considerably, but the supply side still stayed on its main trajectory. So that's what affected housing costs substantially in such, a relatively short space of time. When we look at the historical costs of housing over the previous decades, typically before the turn of the century, but specifically before the early to mid-90s, housing costs were relatively steady in line with inflation and income levels. But with those changes, we experienced the housing boom that we have the last 20 years.
All right, well, we have to go to a break now. You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
This season, we need your help to control Queensland fruit fly in our region. Your infested fruit is destroying your neighbour's harvest and the livelihood of our orchardists and their families. Pick up and dispose of fallen fruit. Infected fruit in your backyard is a breeding ground for fruit fly. Monitor fruit fly numbers by hanging traps in your fruit trees. Traps can be purchased at your local hardware stores. Net your fruit trees and susceptible vegetables with fruit fly specific netting. Contact us for information.
Every time you shop, the choices you make affect our community. It is important to select Australian products made by Aussie-owned companies. Our food security means quality and peace of mind. Your purchasing power keeps your dollars multiplying in our economy, keeping jobs, profits and decisions being made right here, which is better for your children. So the next time you buy, look for the AusBuy logo. It makes all the difference.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Daniel Attard, who is a Senior Policy Advisor for the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. Welcome back to the program, Daniel.
Thank you.
So can you tell us what are the challenges facing government?
Okay, so principally the biggest challenge for government is how, well, all governments, local, state and federal, are going to pay the bills. Particularly the federal government, because so much of what local and state and territory governments do feed directly from the federal government. The federal government is, you may call it an umbilical cord for the states, territories and local governments. They've got this phenomena now where it's dealing with debt. We heard so often in the previous years of a debt deficit disaster, as Tony Abbott put it. Julia Gillard promised so much about delivering a budget surplus that never eventuated. The main phenomena that contemporary and a lot of the Western countries around the world are dealing with this is that the number of welfare recipients is increasing while the number of taxpayers is decreasing. And eventually you reach a equilibrium as such where the number of taxpayers equals the number of welfare recipients. And if that equation turns on its head and there's more welfare recipients than there are taxpayers, you're left in a conundrum where the people that are contributing to the system in a financial sense are actually being outnumbered by those taking money out of the system. And that's a phenomena that the federal government more than local and state governments have to deal with at the moment. So we look at typically there used to be more long-term governments, and we're seeing this at a state level as well, where governments were voting out a first-term government was almost unheard of, but it's happened in Queensland, it's happened in Victoria recently, and so they're trying to basically deliver the services that Australians have come to expect, but with a growing welfare bill, for want of a better term, but with a shrinking revenue base. And it's the old adage of an immovable object and an irresistible force. Something has to give. And so the challenge, if we can use our specific example of housing, so people are asking the government to come up with solutions for housing affordability, whether it's review negative gearing policy like Bill Shorten has promised for the upcoming federal election, or review capital gains concessions. All these things cost money, and at the moment the federal government, along with many of the states and territories, just don't have that money to deliver these social or economic outcomes that Australians have come to expect, that made financial sense, particularly during the mining boom years or through previous generations. But with the changing dynamics we have in Australia, where things such as low-skilled work has all but disappeared overseas to many developing countries, for example China, we don't have those entry pathways into employment. So particularly our youth unemployment, we're having hotspots of youth unemployment show up right across the country, but and including Victoria, typically in rural areas where there's just not those pathways into long-term sustainable employment. So these are issues that the government has to deal with at all levels, and they're continuing to struggle to come up with those solutions while trying to deliver a sustainable economic footing for the current generation and for future ones. Wow.
How do you see the solution?
Basically, some hard decisions have to be made. I think whether the leaders of state and territory governments, and particularly the Prime Minister, for reasons we spoke about before, about the federal government funding so many of these goods and services, the Prime Minister needs to be quite frank with the Australian people and say, look, we simply do not have the funds anymore to provide these services, and it is going to be a difficult and uncomfortable conversation to have, but the result is if we don't do that, it's what I refer to as intergenerational theft, where we are borrowing money, the current generations, that future generations are going to have to service that debt. And it's quite an unethical way of maintaining our lifestyle at the expense of the living standard and the lifestyle of future generations, when they at the moment don't have, they're going to be left paying the bills, but they don't have the capacity to exercise their political opinion in the form of voting at the moment. So it would be a very easy thing to just simply say, let's keep the status quo, let's keep delivering the services that we're doing, let's continue to borrow money at the rate we are, but eventually we can't live in a structural deficit as we are at the moment, ongoing forever. We need to have a truthful conversation as a nation in and amongst ourselves, which has to be led by the Prime Minister. He's the leader for a reason, that it is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but say simply the number of taxpayers is falling with the ageing population. The baby boomers are currently in transition from employment going into retirement, and because they're at the end of their working life, they're typically high income earners, so you're going to have this block over the next 8 to 10 years of typically high income earners that are high taxpayers move into retirement, and then that will bring about other costs to housing, providing appropriate aged care, providing they're going to be using the health system much more, and then not only are they going to be receiving the age pension, but they won't be paying the income tax they were previously. So you've got this perfect storm of decreasing revenue with increasing costs associated with an aging population, and all those things simply don't fit into the current model that we have of, for want of a better term, paying our national bills at the moment. So again, to repeat my point, it's that conversation that being honest amongst ourselves as a country, saying some of these services or payouts that we get from the government just aren't sustainable at a fiscal level anymore, and can we do without them? Or are people paying their fair share of tax? Are we putting the burden on too few to service too many? It's these conversations that we really need to have.
Well, look, it's been wonderful having you here. Would you like to come back again next week?
I'd love to.
Thank you. You've been watching NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich, and our guest was Daniel Attard. I hope you enjoyed the program, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, Sarah, I'm going to order some pathology tests to see how everything's going.
Half the Australian population had a pathology test last year. That's you or someone you love. 100 tests are performed every minute, delivering vital medical information. From the moment you are born, your healthcare depends on pathology tests. 70% of medical decisions rely on information from pathology tests. Pathology is the engine room of healthcare. One small sample can reveal millions of insights all about you. Pathologists are your doctor's doctor. 25,000 people work to provide doctors with the answers they need to treat you. Australian pathology is world class. We may never meet you, but we see each of you as part of our family. Every minute, 23 Australians find out more about their health.
Good news, Sarah. The results show that everything's okay.
Pathology provides peace of mind.
I rely on Australian pathology.
Sign up online to support Australian pathology.
Performance poetry comes your way with Red Lobster every Monday night at 9:30. Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah Satnam.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Vaughan Parnapa, who's a Baha'i of Maori descent. Thanks for coming in, Vaughan.
My pleasure.
Before we go through to talk about Baha'i, which we will indeed, I believe you have quite an interesting story about your first spiritual experiences as starting from quite an early age. Sure. Tell us about that.
I was born into a movement called the Ratana Church in New Zealand. The Ratana Church started in 1918 around a Maori wheat farmer who, after a number of spiritual experiences, proclaimed that God had spoken to him in the form of a cloud. On the 8th of November 1918, as he was standing on the porch of his home, looking out to the Whangaihu Sea on the west coast of New Zealand, he noticed a cloud low on the water that didn't seem normal. As he stood there, the cloud began to approach him, and when it was about 300 meters away, it burst into flames. Lightning came out of it, the ground shook. In his words, he said, "At that moment, every cell of my body was on fire." So his wife and I think about 6 children were inside. His thought was, it's the end of the world, I'm going to die with my family. He reached for the door handle and fell. And he said that he felt spiritually that he didn't stop falling. The next part of that story actually comes from his daughter, Te Reo Hura. I met her in 1988, I think it was, and she explained to me that as a 14-year-old girl, the whole family she was in the kitchen with her mother, and they ran to the front of the house to see what was going on because the ground was shaking, and they wanted to see where he was. And when they looked out and saw this cloud in front of the house and lightning coming out of it, yes, they were terrified. They fell to the ground, and as I said, as a 14-year-old girl, she said, I was nosy, I wanted to know what was going on. So I looked up, I saw my father lying on the porch outside, and she said that what she saw were 3 panes, like movie screens, and images changing in them constantly. When I met her, she was, I think, around about 90-something. She said to me that in her life, she has seen every single one of those images as an event in history. So they were portents of future things to come.
Right.
She explained to me a number of things about the origins of the church and so forth and so on. But when I grew up, I was born on that day, on the 8th of November, and the elderly lady that raised me, Te Kiri Kōwhai, she was 92 when I was born, and my mother left me with her for her to raise me. And she taught me, as a small baby, a lot of the history of the church. Of course, I got this from my mother and other family members later. They would say that she would talk to me as if I were an adult. And when they would tell her, he's only a baby, don't talk to him like this, she would get very upset and tell them to go away. And all this was in Māori. And when I was 3 years old, I was told that the social welfare told her that she was too elderly to look after a toddler, so She sought out another young lady that she had raised, who had just recently married, and they adopted me, and this was where I get the name Pānapa. So Herena Pānapa and Wiremu Pānapa were my adopted parents. My grandmother lived until I was 5 years old, and around about that time I started school. And of course, in New Zealand at that time, it was not permissible to speak Māori in school.
Oh, right.
And so my adopted mother wouldn't speak to me in Māori because of the social conditions, and I wasn't permitted to speak Māori at school, so I lost the language by the time I was 8 years old. Because I was born on the same day that Ratana had his vision, on the 8th of November, my grandmother seemed to feel that I had a purpose, a destiny, I suppose you could say. And so she would talk to me about the history of the church and its purpose. One of Ratana's prophecies was regarding 3 generations. He said in 1920, I think it was 1928, he called a few of his trusted followers into the temple in Ratanapa, near his house. And he said to them that all I have given you, you must seal up in your hearts. The first generation, which is the generation that was alive at that time, he referred to as Paukai Hapai o Te Rama, or pillars of light, or bearers of light, I guess. He said these ones believe because they saw the miracles, and Ratana performed many, many, many miracles, attested by newspapers of the time.
Right.
So he said that that first generation were not able to understand his mission and his purpose. One example of this was the elders came to him one time and said, look, we want our land back. Ratana responded by saying, unite as one under God and all these things shall be restored to you. So unite as one under God. And one of the elders got up and said, we're sick of this. Every prophet that comes along tells us the same thing and we still don't have our land. And Ratana said, this is because you never listen. You have not yet united. So he said to his followers on that particular day in the temple, the second generation are Pau Te Hahi, pillars of the church. They believe because of their parents. And he said this generation doesn't understand either. But he said there is a generation coming, the third generation. They will neither see me nor hear me, but they will follow without question. That generation will live through the time of change, and they will be, I think he called them the seeds that are scattered to the winds, something like that. And I fully believe that this is this generation that we're living in now.
Yeah.
So my grandmother sort of inculcated these understandings in my heart.
Thanks, Vaughan. That's very interesting to this point, but we'll have to go to a break. We'll be back in a moment.
It's always been my dream to represent Australia in the Olympics. Epilepsy affects nearly 250,000 Australians. Like me, most people have their seizures controlled with medication. Even today, people with epilepsy face incredible discrimination, but this prejudice is just another obstacle we can overcome. We're just as capable as anyone else, and often we have to be stronger. I promise I'll do my best for Australia. Will you do your best for me?
Are you playing renovation roulette? I'm John Jarrett. Now I know that deadly asbestos lies hidden in 1/3 of Aussie homes. It can be found in any home built or renovated before 1987. Lurking in walls, under floor covering, behind tiles, in roofing. Asbestos, it was used everywhere. So if you're a renovator or a tradie, you could be risking your life and the lives of others. Remember, go slow. Asbestos, it's a no-go. Visit asbestosawareness.com.au to learn what you need to know.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Vaughan Parnapa, who's a Baha'i of Maori descent. Now, you had that introductory bit there, Vaughan, where you sort of started to get a bit of the Ratna introduction, but then you hit the part that a lot of young blokes do. You went through your rebellious period. What did that look like?
Pretty messy. At 13, I had an accident where I started getting migraines, very bad migraines, and it affected my education and my life in general. But the other thing it did was it threw me into the wider social malaise of Maori culture with alcohol and violence, and a lot of my friends were drug dealers and gang members and so forth and so on. And I embraced that side of my life very strongly up until I was about 20. And around about that time, there was an elderly priest in our community, and by this time I had no interest in religion whatsoever. The most I would probably do would be to drop my mother off at church on a Sunday. The Ratana Church rituals were all in Māori, so because my Māori was very limited, my understanding of the reo, the language, it held very little interest to me. So there was more sense in alcohol and partying and singing and so forth and so on. But around about when I turned 20, this elderly priest passed away. He was very much loved by the whole community. One of his the priest that he had appointed asked me to take up the collar, which took me aback quite a bit. It was out of the blue and quite unexpected, and my reaction wasn't too savoury. So I tried to sort of escape that path, and over the next 8 to 9 months, a number of, I guess, spiritual experiences occurred that kept pushing me towards this ultimate goal of getting back involved with the church. And after much struggle and rebellion, I gave in. I submitted, and I went back to this priest and I said, "Okay, I'm ready. Let's go." So the dates that Ratana priests, or their proper term is apostle, are ordained is on the commemoration of the date of Ratana's original vision of the 8th of November, which happens to be my birthday. And so he said, "Look, your birthday is coming up. Well, I'm heading down to renew my certificate. Why don't you come with me and I'll get you a certificate for the position of akonga, or disciple. It's the first collared position, and it's like a lay reader, or takes care of children's classes and so forth. So I travelled with him to Ratana Pa, which is the centre of the Ratana movement, and the position I had held up until that time, not for religious reasons, but just to make my mother happy, was the position of katipa, or constable is the transliteration of it, and it's the Ratana version of a Maori warden. And the role of a katipa is to take care of the well-being of the followers, so helping people with luggage or elderly people and so forth and so on. So there's it's a caretaker's role, and especially when you're dealing with 30,000 people, it's quite a crucial peacekeeping role. So on this particular 8th of November, they had put me on duty on the temple gates, and I was on duty for about nearly 12, 13 hours. It was a double shift. And on the morning of the 8th of November, feeling a bit tired, I decided to go sit in the temple to just close my eyes for a few minutes and maybe pray for some strength. The moment I sat down, I had this feeling of as if someone had plugged me into an electric socket.
Right.
Electricity surged through my whole body, and although it was probably only moments, it felt like an eternity. It went on for some time, and when it stopped, I stood up and I walked out of the temple in a daze. I felt like I was walking in a cloud. And I walked about 5 minutes to another building in Ratana Park called the Manual that was built by Ratana in 1938. And standing on the steps of that building, looking out to sea, adjacent to the house of Ratana, I was looking to the same point where Ratana saw his vision of the cloud coming in from the sea. And as I was sort of contemplating, is this the same feeling he felt that day? A little old lady came up to me and asked me a question. She said, "Boy, what do you think the māngai is?" And I sort of had to think for a second, and I just knew that the transliteration of the word māngai, which is mouthpiece. It's a title that Ratana adopted for himself. And so I said to her, "It's a mouthpiece," just like that. She then asked me, "Okay, a mouthpiece, isn't that like a microphone?" I said, "Yes," and at this point I'm starting to get a bit annoyed because I'm in this spiritual space and the stranger walks up to me and interrupts me. And I said, "Yeah, I guess it can be like a microphone." She said, "Okay, so a microphone you can turn on and off, can't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "When the power came over my father, he couldn't turn it off." This was Tahupoti Wiru Ratana's daughter, Te Reo Hura. And Ratana, this was that 14-year-old girl, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And she said, "Boy, let no one deceive you. The power that came over my father is none other but the Holy Spirit." And this was very profound for me. It affected my whole understanding of the Ratana Church and its teachings. And so I stayed in that position as a akonga for about a year or two. And then I was given the position of Apostolo Wairua, which is spiritual apostle.
Right.
And with the direct responsibility to minister to the youth.
Well, just before you do that ministering, we'll go to a break.
Sure.
We'll be back in a moment.
Statistics show 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday. Help break the silence on child sexual assault. Go to bravehearts.org.au.
Hi, I'm Lane Beachley. Australians have recycled enough printer cartridges to cover Bondi Beach 12 times. That's kept 11,000 tonnes of valuable resources out of landfill. Drop your used original cartridges into the special boxes at participating retail outlets. And they'll be turned into new products from pens to road surfaces. Help us keep up the good work. Find out more at cartridges.planetark.org.
Come on, fellas. Let's get down there.
Hang on. Where's Dave?
Oh, hey, fellas. What do you think? Pretty cool, eh?
Real men look out for each other. Don't let your mates drink and drown.
This bank is helping to save lives. Every year, 500,000 Victorians have no idea where their next meal is coming from. Food Bank Victoria works with farmers, supermarkets and manufacturers to make sure their surplus stock ends up here to be distributed to those in need. But all of this is not enough. Right now, this bank needs interest, your interest, to support Victorians in need. If you can help, visit foodbankvictoria.org.au.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Vaughan Parnapa, who's a Baha'i of Maori descent, but with a Ratna background. You were mentioning that there was a mission change for you.
Yes. After becoming an apostle, or spiritual apostle, the church charged a group of us who were young apostles to research the history of the church and to collate information about the early days. And so we began travelling around and meeting with elderly people of that at that time. The people we were meeting with were in their 80s and 90s, and they were very clear in terms of their memories of the 1920s and the experiences that they had. Two clear teachings came through from them. One was the emphasis on what Ratana called te kotahitanga, or the unity of all. The mission of the Ratana Church was to not only bring Māori people to God, but also to emphasise the oneness of Christianity. And so he encouraged Māori who were of different denominations to keep their label, whether they were Catholic or Methodist or Baptist or whatever, but be as one in Christ. And he was immediately condemned by the mainstream churches. So he had an uphill battle. When he travelled overseas between, I think it was 1924 and 1925, some of his followers that remained behind formed the Ratana Church. And he cut his trip short, came back and threatened to dismantle it. He said, "I came not to build fences but to break them down." But the problem was that many of his followers were priests in other churches. They were told that if they associated with Ratana, they would not be recognised in terms of their position. But also, any Māori who wanted to have marriages officiated would not be done so by the church. Baptisms would not be done, and burials would not be last rites. So for this reason, after I think it was about 9 months, they debated with Ratana to allow them to form the church. And so the Ratana Church was officially formed in 1923. So it was interesting for me, all of us really, the research team, to uncover a lot of this information, but it didn't go down too well with the orthodoxy. And so there was a bit of struggle there in terms of what we believed the purpose of the Ratana Church was and what the orthodoxy, advocated. And that began a period of searching. We began investigating other denominations in terms of Christian understanding of the scriptures. And one of the things that had happened at that time was that I had an uncle who was very close to me. He was not a member of the Ratana Church, but he was very down to earth, and he would ground me when I got too airy-fairy, I guess. And I always sought his advice, his wise counsel. And after having a particular strong run-in with the church committee, the meeting finished at about 2 a.m. and I thought I'll give him a call in the morning. I forgot the next day that 2 days later I received a telegram. He passed away pretty much at the hour that I was in this debate. I was devastated by that, and I went to his funeral, and leaving Ratanapa, I went to the temple to say prayers before flying out, and two people were coming out of the temple. One of them was a distant relative. I didn't recognise her, but she recognised me. I asked them, how they've been, what were they doing, and they said they were Baha'is, and they were just leaving one Baha'i meeting to go to another. And I sent them down to these other friends of mine to have something to eat or whatever, and I went to the funeral in Auckland. So I flew off. I was in Auckland for 2 weeks. One of the interesting events that took place in that 2 weeks was one of the other young priests came to me and said, "There's a young Arab evangelist that's laying hands on people and healing them miraculously. We don't usually have this kind of thing in the church. So let's go and have a look. We went to, I think it was Epsom's Girls' Grammar, in the auditorium. They were having this Christian prayer meeting. And I remember even walking into the room, there was power flowing out of the door. You could feel a presence. Yes. And I walked in and there were about 300-400 people praising God and worshipping, singing and the rest of it. When they sat everyone down and this young Arab pastor came to the stage, he gave one of the most amazing sermons I'd ever heard. And it was regarding God not being limited, and don't think that our free will is sacrosanct. And he gave so many examples from the scriptures that God will override our free will if he chooses. And then he did an altar call, which we don't have in the church either. And I said to my friend, let's go down to the altar call. And my friend said, no, I don't think so. I said, why not? What harm will it do? So we went down to the front, and there were about 100 people in between the stage and the front seats. And the Arab pastor, there were about 20 pastors laying hands on people, and people were falling over. And the Arab pastor was in front. He laid hands on this young girl. They helped her down. Her head landed at my feet. He looked at us and said, you and you up on the stage. So myself and my friend, we went up on the stage, not knowing what was going on. And then the pastor is walking along, same guy, walking along, and he's touching people on the face. He'll stop, he'll pray. A few will fall. Then he got to me and he touched me and he stepped back. He said, where are you from? And I thought, oh, okay, here goes. If you mention Ratana to evangelic groups, they say you're following a man, he's a false prophet, blah, blah, blah. I thought, okay, here it comes. Ratana. He said, Ratana was a man powerfully anointed by the Holy Spirit. I almost fell over when he said that. And then he came back to me, he put his hand on my face and he began to pray, and then he stopped and he said, what are you here for? I said, the anointing of the Holy Spirit. He said, how can you get something you already have? I almost fell over when he said that.
Yes.
He said, do you want the infilling of the Holy Spirit? And I'd never heard of this. I said, sure. He said, raise your hands. I raised my hands and it was like heat from on high came and just went over my whole body. And the next thing I knew, I was on the floor looking up. Every cell of my body was filled with joy.
And the joy, I'm going to have to be a killjoy, and I'm going to say we're out of time, but can you come back next week?
Sure.
Because we've got to follow this through. This is a fantastic story. We'll be back next week, and Vaughan will trace his story through to his evolution as a Baha'i.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu
For interesting and informative interviews, join us for NAT Chat Monday nights at 8. Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
The following program carries an MA classification and may contain adult themes and coarse language. MELfeed Video advises that it is suitable for viewers aged 15 plus. The following program.
For interesting and informative interviews, join us.
A Melbourne poem I wrote, coming here at the beginning of August. I come in winter to a city without you. I've been living in Singapore, and I must admit I was glad to come away from the tropical sultriness to the coolness of Melbourne. Very refreshing, actually. And it has a little quote translated from the French of Mallarmé. Oh, so dear from afar and nearby. And I suppose this is about, how do you sustain relationships over long distance? You may relate to it. My jet wings burn silver through your clouds southbound from Asia. Further yet nearer, now I can think of you, just you, right here, instead of my to-do lists, meetings and agendas, burnt deals and taxes. All that is done. I have passed my silver keys to the god of small transactions to study how to see and taste you again, l'image and a portal, yes, my beginning and perpetual. I know peach pink lips still unlock the zone of your aromas. This is my future, and I will always kiss your rose. I wheeled you safe, stepping from an airport into a wet, cold day, lifted you on a shuttle bus, moved through a new city to a university room. I lugged you 5 floors upstairs, precious in those belongings, and set you down bag by bag, unlocked, unzipped you, thinking each shirt and shoe, retained you because you had lovingly worked to fold and pack, then close each case. Yes, I have dragged you along, half of an arrival, half a construction plan. How shall we build now? Online, in the land of cyber, heartbeats can send signals down a wire. Days of email and ennui, and late nights online. We chat in glocal tongues. Business matters are left there and its leftovers. No neat clinching of the deal of the past. Regrets carry forward and I am in the red. When I met and had you, I was full of myself with nothing much to give. Arriving empty in this winter city, I am filled again with your more than virtual warmth. Darling, I had let you grow dormant until the winter sun rose. This time I will not forget. I wanted to buy flowers and set them on the shelf, zinnias with black eyes, carnations, freesias, larkspur with a lily, Gerbera daisies and one blood rose. They were simple, inexpensive, the sort to dress a table or to set alight a shelf. So many times I should have bought them for you and didn't. Today I remembered, but couldn't. I listen out to cars on a wet black road as Morse code pecks at the glass. Sparrow, are you hoping to be let in? Have you flown here, following me with a sprig in your beak? The flood is a far-fetched idea, yet we have our covenant. You are close at hand, winter sparrow. Talk to me, talk to me. Red bricks and bitumen, thrumming of trucks down a freeway, and the magpie warbling is the lone bugler, lest I forget who I am. My broad vowed country, lamb and mint sauce land, this is where my little time began. I am 1 foot returned, you, the other, are ready to leap. A pair, we can shuffle forward. For now I sit in student rooms, stare vacant at fluorescents and burn above the walkways. I look out into the darkness for you. Rest is the wraith that will not let me sleep. We will have to build in some other country, along a beach for now. Think up a house, a homestead or surf shack. Build 1 bed, our fireplace. Nearby we can pace beside the unscrolling ocean and take a clean slate dip each day. We can go up in a red balloon and view the coastline where the scenery is us. Enjoy a camel galumphing ride to the breakwater and make believe we are tourists. Distant intimacy demands imaginings, a new domicile of words as the ocean swells under galaxies, out of time zones. When do we meet under stars?
In the intensive care unit on the silent TV is a fado singer all in black, the occult liquest in the red of her mouth, her hands blind deaf clutching a shawl at her breast, a ladder 10-stepped to her cloven petal mouth that is so much a thing. The nurses are all in white, the patients all men. I was born to die with you tonight, all night. She might sing but for the sound of the bedridden being turned in their beds, to sleep with posthumous expression. The camera closes in till she is all mere head. No lovely body hung from it as a garland to appease. There is no religion left that will keep this Gorgonean out of a man's last dream that life apportions him. I'm going to read some free verse sonnets from my latest book. Once I started writing them, I couldn't stop. This one's called Minos, which is the all-consuming rage of the Homeric gods, and Achilles was the only mortal to have possessed it. He arrives early morning on his mother's lawn, each trembling leaf of grass a potential of his, a hero with a feats backlog. He walks through the glass door like it's a waterfall, 2 knives, blades for handles, slicing his sub-god palms as he smashes the all-seeing screens, defies the tricky stars emitted from the microwave, tips over the big blue fish tank swarming with flash eyes of Zeus. In Athena's flak jackets, the cops approach, this infinitely armed Achilles throwing canned goods. There's an impossible, bearable weight to the world, pressing down the soil of thought into a diamond self, each phrenic facet adamant, unmistakable, as he teams out the door onto the street. The gunshot is quieted by a garbage truck. On his body, his mother falls.
If a man's home is his castle, his shed is his kingdom. It's a place men can hang out with a few mates, build a few things, even if you haven't before, and give back to the community. No man should be without a shed. The Australian Men's Shed Association is working to provide a shed for all Australian men, and they have over 400 already. Visit your local shed, build your community, and make a difference. Find a shed near you. It's time to give back.
Every time we buy certified organic, we're making a choice to help our environment and build a healthier community. But it can be hard to know that what we're buying is truly organic. The Australian Certified Organic logo is only given to products after a very rigorous process. So when you see this logo, it means you can trust that there are no genetically modified foods, no animal cruelty, and no harsh synthetic pesticides used. A healthier community is always better for our future. So the next time you shop, look for this logo.
The tax office can take money directly out of people's accounts, but you're not allowed to know. The elderly are being abused and neglected in nursing homes, but you're not allowed to know. The government can raid journalists for reporting the truth if it says you're not allowed to know. It couldn't happen in Australia. It's happening now. When the government hides the truth from you, what are they covering up? Authorised by Australia's Right to Know, Sydney.
Northern Access Television will turn 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
To get a little bit more ambitious and produced a longer work that involved commissioning music, original music, with a boy soprano and a whole cast of musicians, graphic artwork. It was all filmed at night too, either on the streets of Adelaide or inside the Adelaide Zoo. I was interested in the sort of nature-culture connection. It was around about 82 and postmodernism was in great vogue, and I was sort of very much drawn into that. And so the film is about anachronism, and I actually I appropriated, that was another fashionable word back then, I appropriated some 17th century fables of John Gay, who wrote animal fables, and changed them into sort of slightly postmodern concepts. These were then typeset back into the 17th century text, where the Fs look like S's, or the S's look like Fs, I mean, and used within the body of the film. There are about 5 of these little pieces. I'll give you a little quick example of it. So this fable is called The Monkey Who Had Seen the World. A monkey to reform the times, resolved to visit foreign climes, but soon returned, all curiosity abated. The world, he cried, has grown more descented and less differentiated. Another one is The Tame Stag. His lord was pleased, as was the clown, when he was tipped with half a crown. The stag was brought before his wife, who marvelled at this modern life, its ability to construct with wires more and more specialised images and desires. So that's half John Gay, half Mike Ladd. Let's have a look at Zoo After Dark.
Behind your favourite team, there's another team. At all levels, in all codes, sports trainers are working to make sport safer. Sports trainers learn injury prevention techniques from doctors and other health professionals so they can provide the right first aid when the going gets tough. If your team could do with a sports trainer, maybe it's time you got a little closer to the action. Find out how you can become a sports trainer. Sports Medicine Australia, providing the team behind the team.
Joy, well-being, community, inclusion.
Special Olympics is a global movement for people with an intellectual disability, creating a world of inclusion and community through sport, where every person is accepted and welcomed, regardless of ability. One athlete, one volunteer, one family member at a time, helping to make the world a better place. Join the inclusion revolution by supporting Special Olympics.
And choose to include.
William Terrell was abducted from his nana's home on the New South Wales mid-north coast on the 12th of September 2014. And somebody knows who did it. Do you? There is a $1 million reward for information that leads police to William. That's 1 million reasons to make the call. Contact Crime Stoppers now. 1800 333 000. Make the call.
Fabulous minutes every week. Meet the famous, the fortunate and the fashionable as Steve and Jacqueline take you to all the events around town. Not to be missed, it's the most fabulous 15 minutes you'll ever see.
Hello, bum squat tea stalls, sticky flies, milk sweet vendors. Hello, tailors, astrologers, cobblers, banana sellers, samosa wallers. Hello, Ali Opticals, Saraswati Musicals, Mount Kailash Dry Cleaners, Maha Lakshmi Jewelers. Hello, monkey men hanging from buses, sideways sitting wives on scooters. Hello, thumbless lepers on pushcarts, rickshaw peddlers defying progress. Hello, ambling cow, elephant lumbering in chains, boy in buffalo cart, farmers in tractor trailer smoking hookah. Hello, dogs with visible ribs outside Abdullah's meat shop. Hello, Bengali sex doctor, ultrascan abortion clinics. Hello, road work women in saris lifting the pickaxe for the nation. Muslim, Parsi, Jew and Christian. Hello, Sikh with sword and turban. And surgical masked Jain monk, the saviour of bacteria. Hello, sadhu with swinging penis. Sufi singer drunk on Koali. Dropout yogi in a cave. Hello, chapati, once a day. Namaskar. 84 million life forms. You are the ladders. You are the snakes. You are the ladders. Evolving, devolving, revolving from politician to vulture food. From mud to illumination, and yes, 330 million gods, finite friends still trekking to the formless. A pantheon greeting also to you. Good morning, black and yellow taxi. Good morning, Lord Shiva, holy picture meditating on the dash. Good morning, moustached and cunning driver with a greedy meter. Hello, you bitumen river of India. Please ferry me through the storied bazaars, laneway by cobbled laneway, mango pip by mango pip, as minutely and epically as possible, to wherever it is I'm destined to blow like a handful of dust scumbled into the wind. Thank you.
A couple of poems that are very loosely based on the Psalms. Number 1. The beginning is the furthest, wildest dominion of the end. My tears have been all as food. Why are you so heavy, my soul, and rattle inside like a ball bearing? Deep calls to deep in the dry undersea. The storm's mass and spittle are gone over me. Why can't you sit right, my soul? Even without faith, there's always a best-case scenario. Number 2. I have cried day and night on the threshold of your ear. I am like those with a death to die. I lie on my side, my knee bones millstones ground together. Your terrors I have suffered from my youth up. In each bedroom's nightly skull box, in each blink's dark eye, in each quick hot cupful the heart tips out. Each sonnet a shrunk head strung round the neck. The fear comes about me daily, a tide without a moon, at every side. Number 5. The cliff is a wave of rock that waits. Settled on top is an albatross nestling, facing the way its mother left at first light. It will not move but to blink, adagio, till she comes on the front of dusk. You set me lightwise on this rock and ordered me to stay. My heart a vessel misemployed above the watermark, the sea's black pelt gleaming in the light underneath. Steady is the pulse of the promisee's heart, one beat mutinous, patient the other. He stood a moment against the wall, then walked towards the executioner, reached for the mouth of the rifle and tried to take it from him gently, as if a bread knife from a lover gesticulating. He stood back against the wall, then walked off again, apologetically, as if from a broken heart's call to fight at bar closing. But they grabbed him and knelt him and bent him over, his prayer now a river of lions.
RSPCA, for all creatures, great and small.
It's easy for things to go wrong around water. More so if you can't swim.
It's great seeing kids confident in the water and enjoying themselves. An important part of keeping kids safer around water is learning to swim.
There are over 600 registered swimming schools that run the Australian Unity Learn to Swim program. To find one, go to the Swim Australia website.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Hello, I'm Jerome and you're watching 15 fabulous minutes, and that's a bit of it. 10 seconds now.
Come
smacking, ass-kissing fashion. Now, I've got a photographer here, Ben. What do you look for when you're shooting one of these models?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. I don't look for good looks straight away.
Really?
No,
I'm your man. I am your man.
You are actually.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Because what I look for is the beauty that starts within, right in here.
Oh, that's me.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Emma Booth. She's like this red-haired girl. She's fantastic. The best thing about her is her beauty doesn't start on her face. It starts
from inside.
It starts inside. Then it permeates to the way she talks and the way she walks.
You've had a few drinks tonight, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. Now, I noticed I was up there in the media and there was a bit of a fight going on. There was a huge media cat fight. Were you involved in that?
Usually, as usual, yes I was. Yeah.
Yes, I was. Everybody's competing to get that glamour shot. So we're going to have a look at the opening launch of Melbourne Spring Fashion Week. Is it a magic flute or a wonder stick? What is it?
It's like my whacking stick, really.
Your whacking stick?
Almost.
I've got to leave. Oh, you're a baton girl?
Yeah.
So what's tonight? What are you?
Military look.
Military
yeah.
look.
So it's like my battle.
So you're going to go down there and do a few kick-ass things, yeah?
A lot of kick-ass things.
Kick-ass things.
Yeah.
So you introducing just the military look or just the whole fashion week in general?
Whole fashion week
Whole
in general.
fashion week.
Yeah.
Have you seen your eyes? They're incredible.
I know, aren't they?
They're just so strong. Is this your first gig?
No, it's not. I did Fashion Week back in 99.
99. So you're back again.
Yeah.
The revival.
It's all very exciting stuff here backstage as everyone's getting prepared for the Wrangler show, the first one up tonight, and we've bumped into three lovely models. What are your names?
William.
Francesca.
Bill.
Excellent. Are you excited for tonight's show?
Yeah, it should be good.
Yeah. And what exactly are you going to be wearing tonight?
This.
Nothing.
See, the attire's already on. There's pre-preparation.
You have to take it off at the end.
Really?
Everything will be stripped off.
So I'll come back in naked and have your camera ready.
Fantastic. It's all good. It's all good. Now, do you find that you feel, well, especially for you, Francesca, feminine in what you wear? Do you like the style of what you're wearing?
It's definitely different. I don't think I'd wear orange stockings out. So, but yeah, it's okay. It's
especially matching with the bra. You're all coordinated.
Yeah. The guys' clothes are a bit more sort of normal than what the girls are, but it's all right.
It's all kind of a bit trash, you know. Really. I mean, yeah.
And that's your outfit, I take it?
It is, and I'm glad to say there's a bit of a comeback for the Dunlop volleys.
So at least you're going to be comfortable out there.
That's right.
Well, look, have fun, guys.
Thank you.
Black Betty, bam lamb, whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb, whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb, whoa, Black
Betty. We're here with Tim Hewen. Bit of a hurdlist. No hurdles here tonight.
No hurdles, just straight walking tonight.
So you're the face of Melbourne Spring Fashion Week. How does that feel?
It's a bit annoying, really.
Yeah, why's that? Everybody coming up to you?
Yeah. No, it's all right. It's something different.
So how do you title yourself? Athlete, model athlete, or a model athlete?
Athlete who
got into
does some modelling to pay his bills.
Oh, really? No money in jumping the hurdles?
Not yet.
Really?
Yeah, hopefully next year.
Sponsor this guy, Nike.
Come on.
Anyone? You'll take any offer, yeah? Absolutely. So what are you in for tonight? Just one outfit, couple of outfits?
3 tonight with Hugo Boss.
Expecting a few cheers?
Oh, I hope so. My mum's out there. So
Your mum's out there?
She'll give me a cheer.
Bring out the whistle.
I'll be the only one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you... It's like, your mum's out there, yeah. So how long have you been doing the modelling thing then? Don't wipe off the makeup because
sorry, man.
they'll be upset. I tell you, they'll be upset.
Moved to Melbourne in January from Adelaide, and
so you are moving up then.
Yeah.
And next will be Sydney and so on.
No? I think I'm going to stick it out in Melbourne for a while.
Yeah, Melbourne's cool.
Yeah.
And I noticed a little
yes, little bit of metal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story? Does that stop you when you're hurdling? You don't get caught in the wind? No?
Hasn't yet.
Hasn't
but
yet.
I'll let you know.
There's a lot of hair happening back here. There's a lot of makeup happening around here. There's a lot of everything happening behind here. And, well, we're going to go and check out exactly what there is happening. Very, very exciting stuff. I bumped into Celeste. How you going, Celeste?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very good.
Excellent, excellent. She's well, you're one of the helpers for tonight. Can we call you that?
Yeah, I was originally working backstage.
Yes.
But tonight I wanted to work out here and watch it all.
Well, see, I don't know what's better. On a night like, we were discussing a little earlier on with Celeste, that on a night like Wednesday night, where there was a men's collection, we prefer to be backstage. But tonight we prefer to be out the front, don't we?
Well, when we first rocked up the other night, it was guys. We just went, they said, sorry girls, it's just the guys tonight, and we've gone, excellent.
Good.
So,
no complaints?
No, that was mad. Like, I went home, I closed the door, and I said to Mum, that was the best night of my life. May I mention it was the best night of my life?
And then they're all spunks, but that's all good.
But, yeah, tonight I wanted to watch it all.
Cool. And what's been your biggest adventure so far?
My biggest adventure? Probably me flirting with the models.
See, there's highlights everywhere on a week like this.
Hi, Peter Chadwick, obviously one of the best agencies here in Melbourne.
Thank you.
You've been in the rag trade for how many years now?
25 years this November.
Whoa, you're going to have a celebration?
Don't know, might. We might.
So you've seen heaps of shows, obviously, all through those years. What did you think of tonight?
I thought it was great. I love the venue. I think it's interesting to have something different like this. It just makes it more interesting than the same old, It's like
a bit more grungier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's sort of, with being menswear as well tonight, it sort of works really well. I don't know whether it works as well for high-class women's wear, but I think it does, and I think it's good because everybody can see, and that's what people are here to do, and that's the whole idea, I think, is so that people can see it well enough to go out and buy it. Yeah.
So how many of the models you got out there today?
In tonight's show?
Yeah.
Pretty good percentage. There's about 7 or 8, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what, most of them from Melbourne, or is there some from Sydney?
I believe all those guys tonight and all the models that are being used this week are all from Melbourne.
Which is good.
Budget wasn't as,
Well, they cost more from Sydney or elsewhere?
They have to fly them down and they have to accommodate them. So, when there's budget constraints. So they found and I think some of those guys were fantastic.
Well, personally, I found last year as well, there was a lot of Sydney guys down here.
There were.
Yeah, we're the Melbourne Spring Fashion Week. I think we should support our own.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you find that?
And I think I think that the quality is here. Sometimes when you've got a lot of girls, or you're looking for a lot of girls, you can't actually get the full contingency out of Melbourne because they're all doing back-to-back, and so you have to have 2 groups, and logistically it just doesn't work. But this year I think maybe, it'll be closer to it. There's a lot more.
You're part of the Wrangler?
Yep.
Okay. Now, what do you think about the clothes that you're wearing? Is that your outfit? You're all decked out?
They've kind of just improvised a lot of it, which is really good. Like, they're taking bits and pieces and shoving it all together. Usually, like, they've organised and they're, like, way in advance what every model's going to have, and this one is like, wear whatever you like and swap and change. So,
is this the first show that you've done tonight?
For Spin it is, but I've been doing shows all week. I've been doing David Jones shows, so...
Lovely. Is this the first fashion week that you've ever done?
No, I've been doing it since I was 15.
Kind of professional here. Very exciting. I love your makeup, I have
thank
to say.
you.
It just looks absolutely gorgeous.
People, yeah.
The Napoleon people doing makeup tonight.
Backstage here, and we're going to try and cross over to Katie Underwood, formerly from Bardo. She's at Daimaru. We'll have a look. Hello, Katie. Can you come in? Oh, no, look, sorry. Unfortunately, there is no sound. We're not receiving any sound at the moment. But she's joined there with Jamie Jury. Oh, look at him. Yep, having a great chat. She's flirting away. I'm getting a little bit of sound coming through, but unfortunately we can't broadcast it to you. We'll have another look at some of the fashions there at Daimaru. Yep, they're the girls up there strutting their stuff. But Daimaru's actually celebrating their 10th anniversary there. Okay, unfortunately, yep, we're not getting any sound coming through. Sorry about that, Katie. We're going to have to cut you off, but that's Katie Underwood from Independent now. Independent singer, I guess you could say. Oh, look, looks like she's having a bit too much fun. Okay, we'll see if we can deal with the technical difficulties later on, and maybe we might be able to get her. But basically, we'll see, okay? Thanks very much. That was Katie at Daimaru.
Good, how are you?
Now, I hear you won an award this year.
No, I haven't won an award.
You haven't won an award?
No, but
I
you
hear
can give
wrong.
me one.
Didn't you win something like designer or...?
No, I've been nominated by GQ for Designer of the Year or Man of the Year in the fashion design category.
Man of the Year?
Yes, how's that?
How do you get Man of the Year?
God knows.
What qualities do you have?
What qualities do I have? Fantastic clothing.
Fantastic clothing, yes. And you've only been in the rag trade, what, 3 years?
11.
11?
Yeah.
For AG's itself?
AG 3.5 years.
3.5 years,
yeah,
which
3.5
is
years.
good for a new label.
No, it's gone leaps and bounds. We're sort of trying to keep it under control at the moment, so we're not sort of getting too carried away. But we've just opened Sydney, which is good.
Okay, great.
That was 2 months ago, so it's been really good, yeah.
So how are you finding the Sydney people as towards the Melbourne people? I mean, Sydney is much different and it's a lot harder, I think, in general.
Look, yeah, it is, but if you sort of if your brand's recognised and people appreciate it for what it is, quality and all the rest of it, then people don't have a problem spending. They really sort of, if they like something, they'll buy it, and there's no question of price.
Funny man, Mr. Gilmohan, a man of many talents. How are you going tonight?
I'm good. I'm a model tonight.
You're a model? Do you feel all special?
I always knew this was going to happen to me eventually.
They've snapped you up.
I've got all the
Clever
moves.
people they are. Is that your pose?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You don't know yet?
I thought about it too much. I'll probably just walk out and make a fool of myself.
Nah, it's all
They're quite
good.
serious, the people, aren't they? They'll look at you with scorn. Distaste. I might just give them the fingers.
Gilmohan, do you have your walk down pat yet?
No. I'll show you what I could do.
Show me, show me.
I've got this bit here.
Please, show us.
I've got to get the turn. I think I've got the turning.
It doesn't get spiffier than that. A true professional.
Make it hot like fire, too much of proof like moonshine. Listen, playing yourself is risky. On the floor now, jazzing like Dizzy Gillespie. And the sound, already yes and deadly. Like a heartbeat, call me the great one like Wayne Gretzky. You can test me, so I try. Focus like a samurai, stronger than I'm not tied. I mean tsunami, I rock it from MTV to the BBC.
Anyone can do this and get in backstage. You're just here to see naked men.
It's exactly right.
That's what you're up to.
That's exactly.
It's
You found me out.
It's underpunch you want to see. Check these.
Oh, he's flashing the undies. I'm getting excited.
These aren't mine.
Really? Whose are they?
Calvin Klein's.
Is that so?
He wears ones with Jimone written on them.
Got to look good. What do you got here? Compact?
A compact of camera finish, just a powder foundation.
So how many top-ups during the night are you going to do?
Probably about, I don't know, 5, 15.
5?
Yeah.
So you're running from model to model, tripping over them?
Yes, I am.
Like we see here?
Yep.
In ore?
In ore.
Okay,
No.
quick powder, make me look glamorous. Oh, so smooth. Feels good.
Beautiful. There you go.
Normally I don't need makeup, really,
you
do
go.
I? No.
Y'all can see me now, but you don't see with your eye. You will see with your
We've found a modelizer. You're a modelizer as well?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Guilty, he says, basically.
Yes, yeah.
So how'd you enjoy tonight's launch?
Yeah, it wasn't bad actually. The models are very tall. Yeah.
Very tall. That's a good criteria. Yeah. And so you're going to go through some of the other shows throughout tonight?
I will, yes.
There are going to be lots of very spunky men, and I happen to have come across just one of those spunky men. Dylan, how are you this evening?
Oh, very good, thank you. A man, am I?
A man? A boy, would you prefer to be called?
Oh, that's what I'm used to.
Oh, well, you can be a man in my books this evening.
A man.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Now, exactly what are you doing in tonight's show?
I'm hoping to get some chest hairs painted on me to fulfill the role of
Lovely.
a man.
Lovely.
And maybe some back hair we were thinking as well, down the middle. Down the middle.
Just one line?
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
3?
No, I don't want to be too trendy or look like
Oh.
I'm trying hard or anything.
Of course.
Just has to look natural, like so I can be a manly.
Dylan, now tell me that all of the mohawks and all of that kind of thing seem to be in at the moment. Where's yours? You trying to be a man tonight?
No, I didn't want
But
to
you
be a
don't have the
punk.
mohawk.
I don't want to be a dirty punk or a feral
Oh.
or anything like that.
You want to be a gentleman.
Correct.
Excellent.
Chivalry is not dead, and I don't want to have a mohawk too. What am I talking about? Is that still on?
What are you doing with yourself these days, Dylan?
I'm playing with my bands. Two
I
bands.
thought you were going to say something else there, but that's so good. That's
Playing
okay.
with my Willie.
I didn't want to go there, Dylan, but you
Well.
just took me there.
I'm a boy, after all. So boys have to play in bands. Mega Bias and the Brown Hornet. And doing that and doing some TV stuff as well and doing the occasional manly gig like this fashion parade for Paul Smith. Yay.
Fantastic. Well, I will continue to let you be a man.
Oh,
Successfully, should I add?
Thanks very much.
Have a good night. Good luck out there.
Thanks a lot.
Well, here I am in Melbourne's Fashion Week. We've got Jodie Kidd, of course, she's from London. She did the Mercedes Fashion Week. She is the face, and she's also the face of Napoleon, which is a bit of the makeup here too. Now, Jodie, what brings you here today? Oh, so you're playing difficult. She doesn't actually want to talk to me. Jodie, you think you're really good, don't you? Well, anyone can stare. She's just looking at me like if I'm some nutter. And so is everybody else that's watching me. Jodie, I'm fine. Models, they're so stubborn. They don't want to talk to me. Well,
you know, Jodie, we don't want you on our show. We do not want Jodie on our show. She's, you know, sorry, being very difficult. Models tend to be very, very difficult.
Well, look, I've heard about turning up the cuffs. These are all the fashions, but I haven't quite heard about the little Adidas pants, are they? What are they underneath?
Adidas pants.
They got two stripes. Adidas, no?
It's a silky Adidas.
That's silky Adidas.
Silk.
No, I did have it right the first time round.
Yep.
Did have it right. And we touched on it before. You're a part of the Wrangler show, of course, but you're wearing the Calvin Klein undies, which you've covered up now that we've mentioned it.
I've covered them. You're going to see me in it. I won't say it. You will see more later of the underpants.
We're going to get to see more later of the underpants. Definitely sticking around backstage for that one.
Are you satisfied with what's going on today?
It's looking great. It's coming together beautifully.
A little wisp in the front there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is tough and sexy.
Tough and sexy?
Yeah, she's one of our...
Turn around. Have a look into our camera. Look tough and sexy. Which bit's tough and which bit's sexy? I know the woman's sexy, but the hair's pretty tough.
This side of the part is tough. That side of the part's sexy.
So how many heads of hair you been doing?
We've got about 16.
16?
Yeah.
Yeah, and all different looks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off she goes. She'll be out here. You'll see her on all different personalities, all different styles.
Yeah.
And what are we going here? What are we going on?
This is we're calling this denim. This look is denim.
How do you incorporate denim into hair?
Well, it's probably more with because when you see the rehearsals and you know what the actions of the girls and the personality they're portraying. So this is really.
So I'm having a bit of a denim kind of hairdo.
Disco denim.
Disco denim.
Disco denim, yeah.
Where do you make these titles up from?
Sort of like a little bit of...
Who's the creative thinker in this block, you know?
You're looking
Disco denim.
Disco denim.
Are we going to add a little bit of sequency thing in there, are we?
Dancing denim. It's
Dancing denim.
The hair's moving, it's sexy.
So you've been designing all the hair all through the week?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Single-handed?
So sitting down with the designers and collaborating and trying where possible to always meet their demands.
And what products are you using?
L'Oreal Professional.
Of course.
Yeah, because we're worth
Only
it.
the best. Yeah, you're worth it. You are worth it.
I'm telling you, the Spunky Boys are out and about tonight. I bumped into your name.
James Thomas.
James, how are you going?
Very well, and yourself?
Wonderful, thank you. Now, you're out here. I'm assuming you're one of the models.
Oh, yes, I am.
What have you thought of tonight so far?
Yeah, it's going really well. It's got a good atmosphere about it, this place, so yeah, everything's working really well.
Excellent, and the hair seems to be happening. What do you think of all of the new trends that seem to be in at the moment, the mohawks and the dirty punk styles? And
Look, they may not be for me, but I'm sure they shoot someone out there, so yeah.
Your personal style?
A little bit more casual, shall we say, yeah.
Complete week of sheer fashion. Yeah. And so, out of all the labels, what do you like wearing most?
What I like wearing? Like an eclectic collection of stuff, really. Shem does t-shirts for me, so I wear him and Roy, and then some overseas stuff as well.
Okay, a bit of a mix-up.
Calibre, yeah.
Yeah, I'm completely in just suburban, basically. Just a suburban type of guy. Well, enjoy the week.
What
was that?
That's the lowdown.
Oh, okay.
What have I been up to? Not much. I've just been hanging around waiting for this big event in my life.
As you do.
Yes, and that's it. It's basically hanging around, just doing nothing. What have you been doing?
What have I been doing?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same stuff.
It
It's all good, yeah, just this kind of stuff, you know.
What's this for? It's for nothing, isn't it?
We're not really popular. We just go around with a microphone so we get to talk to people like you.
But we're going to cross over to Katie and see what she's doing. She's at the Daimaru 10th celebration. Hello, Katie. Okay, it seems to be that we're having some sound problems. Katie's basically mingling with the best of them at the Daimaru 10th anniversary. Basically 10 years Daimaru's been running for. And of course you can see the catwalk models up there on stage and showcasing Daimaru's greatest fashions, which are also available in the department store.
Here is some brilliant news for adults who have difficulties with spelling, reading a newspaper or phone bill, or writing letters and emails. It can be easier to improve your reading and writing skills than to keep putting it off. Take the plunge. Call the Reading Writing Hotline, 1300 65506.
1300 65506.
It could change your life.
Ryan was diagnosed with asthma around about 2. Ryan never let asthma get in the way. He just lived and breathed for soccer. He was the kind of person that lived his life in excited anticipation. He did everything that he wanted to regardless, and even to the point of travelling overseas, he was actually advised he probably shouldn't. Ryan was like a lot of 19-year-olds. He thought he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Ryan had been playing soccer in the afternoon and had a great game and came home and went out to a party. During the evening he started to feel unwell and rang me and asked me to go and collect him. On the way home in the car he told me that he hadn't taken his Preventer for quite a few weeks. So I suggested that he really should go to the hospital on the way home and get checked out because I was concerned that he wasn't getting any better. Within a very short period of time, Ryan experienced a respiratory arrest, was put on life support, and 3.5 weeks later he died. Whilst Ryan had been in hospital a couple of times with his asthma, I don't recall anyone ever telling me that you could die from asthma. I never for a minute thought that I would lose him. Even if someone told you that your child might die from asthma, I think you'd be thinking that was for other people. But the reality is it happens to normal people like us.
Stop! Hold it right there. Have you done your pool safety check? Maintain the barriers, check the gate, and never leave anything that can be climbed on near the fence. Have you brushed up on your CPR skills? And don't tempt kids with toys. Tidy up.
Is that all?
When kids are around the pool, keep watch. They need your attention all the time. Okay, in we go.
Download your free home pool safety checklist and help Royal Lifesaving make this weekend your home pool safety weekend.
This season, we need your help to control Queensland fruit fly in our region. Your infested fruit is destroying your neighbour's harvest and the livelihood of our orchardists and their families. Pick up and dispose of fallen fruit. Infected fruit in your backyard is a breeding ground for fruit fly. Monitor fruit fly numbers by hanging traps in your fruit trees. Traps can be purchased at your local hardware stores. Net your fruit trees and susceptible vegetables with fruit fly specific netting. Contact us for information.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones, the hey, I look good with this ones, the he's never grown that no weak ones, the black, brown, red and grey ones, the, oh whoa, that one, the itchy ones, the never forgotten ones, the ones grown by Dad, the ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn on ones. The finger ones. The badge ones. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Sign up now at Movember.com.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV. Live streamed from Echuca each week, MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV. Live streamed from Echuca each week, MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
They say there's a chance I could die in a car crash. Maybe even from heart disease. Maybe even skin cancer.
I could die in a work-related accident, or I could die in a fight.
The fact is, the biggest cause of death for men in my age group is suicide.
Please don't let this happen to me.
You can do something. Lifeline believes that suicide is mostly preventable. Help us save lives. Find out what you can do at lifeline.org.au.
MELfeed Video is about to close operations for tonight, but we'll be back with you next Monday evening. In the meantime, here is a selection of programs that will be seen on our next scheduled web stream. You're welcome to visit our website at MELfeed.video for further details of this project. Until next time, from all of us here at MELfeed Video, we wish you a very good night.